Hello all, I hope you're all doing well. We are continuing with our weekly portion review, and this week we are in the portion of Pinchas. Um, One of the more pivotal themes in towards the end and the latter chapters of the book of Numbers of Bamidbar is this tension we see between unity and tribal identity. And one of the striking examples, really, we see in our portion that arises in the aftermath of the daughters of Tzlophad, their bold request for inheritance, right? After their father dies and they don't have any brothers. And their request is granted, which is amazing. But this also leads to a temporary restriction, right? They have to marry within their tribe, right? The tribe of Menashe. And this is really to ensure that their inherited land, right, doesn't pass on into the hands of another tribe if they marry another tribe, right? So at first glance, obviously there seems to be a practical reading for this, right? That the members of the tribe of Menashe, if they would have known that the land that granted to their daughters might eventually pass into hands of like another tribe through intermarriage, they might not have been so motivated to conquer that territory at all, right? But this really leads us to a deeper question, which is, why did the Torah, see it was so essential to preserve the tribal boundaries in the first place, and only later to permit intermarriage once we do enter the land, once it's settled? So to understand this, we have to understand and reflect really on the social and spiritual reality of the Israelites in the desert. Right? This is the society described in the wilderness in the Midbar was one that is not yet conquered the land of Israel. Each tribe, except Reuben and Gad, actually have an individual responsibility to conquering its own portion of land. And here we can see that the Torah actually is reflecting not only internal values, but also socioeconomic and geopolitical context of the time, right? Men were the ones that were expected to conquer and cultivate the land. So the Torah initially assigns the land ownership to males. Now, this commandment, in this case, really, it's embedded with a pragmatic sensitivity to the realities of the era, right? We have to realize it's written in the context. Now, Rav Kook teaches us that during the long exile, right, we lost our tribal identities, and maybe this was part of God's divine plan, right? This is to remind us that above all, we're actually one people, right? But now that we have been gathered back to our homeland from the four corners of the earth, right, there is a growing sense of return, right? Not only to the land, but also to our inner diversity, to the roots of each one of our tribes. We are taught that the Messiah will one day reassign each individual to their own tribe. But really, such diversity is never easy. And difference, ultimately, we know, could breed to friction. So we have to ask ourselves, what is the alternative? If we attempt to create a society in which everyone is the same, where we're reenacting the era of the Tower of Babel, right? It's a sterile uniformity, and there's where it's devoid of the divine spark. And the Torah's version is not really of uniformity, but of unity, right? The true love is not loving someone because they are the same as you, but it's loving them in their difference, right? Cherishing this contrast between you guys. The many colors of Israel, I talk about this often, in its tapestry are really what make it beautiful. And we see that when the prophet tells us that the wolf will dwell with the lamb, this is not because one has to become the other, but because both have to recognize the holiness of the other's place in the greater story of Am Yisrael, the people of Israel. And we are now in a mature and complex phase of our national journey, and the tensions that we're experiencing between sectors in Israel and identities and different ideologies, they're not really signs of failure. You could see it as we're in a pregnant moment, right? These are labor pains of a nation that's rediscovering its living soul. And as the journey continues, we have to make sure that we are orienting ourselves properly. Shabbat Shalom. Take care.